Right, this part then we're going to be looking at photosynthesis, and we're going to be looking at what happens during the process of photosynthesis, and we're going to look at what the plant actually uses glucose for. But before we do that, we need to just step back and have a look at a plant cell and make sure we can identify all the different parts. So let's have a look then. If you looked at this diagram, would you be able to label all the parts and state what they all do? Okay, so let's go through them. First of all, you've got your cell wall. Now this is what differentiates a plant cell from an animal cell, because you've got a cell wall which is made of cellulose, which gives the cell strength, and you find the cell wall on the outside and the cell membrane on the inner side. So if we move to the cell membrane then, you should know that the cell membrane is in an animal cell and a plant cell, and it controls the substances that move in and out of the cell. So just remember that the membrane is on the inside, the wall is on the outside. You've got a large vacuole in plants, and that contains the sap and helps to support the plant. And later on we're going to be looking at words such as turgid, where the cell's vacuole is really full and pushing on the sides, and we're going to look at flaccid, where it's empty and makes the cells all floppy, and that's how you know that the plant needs water, because all the leaves are really floppy and wilting. Then you've got your chloroplasts, and your chloroplasts contain your chlorophyll, and that's the pigment required for photosynthesis if you are asked. Okay, again, this is another thing that separates plants out from other groups or other kingdoms, the fact that they've got chloroplasts. Your nucleus controls what the cell does and stores information, just exactly the same as an animal cell. And then lastly, you've got your cytoplasm, which is like a jelly-like substance, which where all the chemical reactions take place. So you can see the difference between animal cells and plant cells, and I'm sure you remember this back from year 7, where animal cells and plant cells all have a nucleus, a cytoplasm and a cell membrane, but the plant cells have 3 more things, 3 more organelles, and they have cell walls, large vacuoles and chloroplasts. So let's have a look then at some specialised cells. We're looking at plant cells, but we're looking at how they are adapted to carry out different jobs. The first thing is these things called the palisade cells, and really these are the ones that you always see, the ones that look really sort of rigid and rectangular, and you find these near the top of the leaf, and the reason is they are absolutely packed with chloroplasts, and that's where the chlorophyll is, and you need that for photosynthesis, which is why you'll find them at the top of the leaf, because that's where the energy will hit the leaf. On the underside of the leaf you'll have these things called guard cells. To me they look like 2 fat sausages joined at the top and the bottom, and in the middle you've got a hole, and that's called the stomata. Now the guard cells basically control the stomata, they control the opening to allow carbon dioxide to get in so that photosynthesis can take place, and to regulate the water content so that water can be evaporated out. And if it's a particularly warm or windy day, then the plant will evaporate more water out. You've now got these cells, and these are called xylems, and we are going to come back to these later on, but these are responsible for transporting water. They are dead cells. They have something called lignin in they're made of lignin, and they are like long cylinders, and basically the water and dissolved minerals transport up the plant through these cells, and it only goes in one direction, and that's up. You've then got these, and please remember, whenever you are talking about root cells, you must say they are called root hair cells. If you just put root cells, you will not get the mark. You must put root hair cells. Now these have a large surface area, and the reason is because they need to absorb nutrients and water. So let's put all this together then and have a look at the process itself. So photosynthesis is when the plant makes its own food, okay, and it takes in carbon dioxide, it takes in water, and it uses the energy from the sun, and it produces oxygen and glucose. Now, to a plant, oxygen is just a waste product. Glucose is just where the energy is stored, ready to be used. And the thing to remember is that plants carry out photosynthesis and respiration, because you need to respire, you need to carry out respiration to release the energy so you can use it for your other life processes. So a plant does this very clever thing where it locks the energy away into a kind of safe, ready, and then when it needs some more energy, it can break down the glucose as you're doing respiration to take the energy from it. Whereas with animals, we can only carry out respiration, we can't carry out photosynthesis. But please, it's a common exam question. When does photosynthesis take place? Or when there's light? When does respiration take place? In the day and the night of plants. Okay. So here then is a diagram just to show you the 4 things that are needed for photosynthesis. So your sun gives the plant energy, the water travels up from the roots, the carbon dioxide enters the leaf through the small holes on the underside through the stomata in the guard cells, and the chlorophyll is the green stuff where the chemical reactions take place. So if we looked really closely at this leaf, if we chopped it in half and actually looked at a cross section of it, this is what we'd see. You can see there at the top you've got your upper epidermis, your upper layer, and that's covered with a waxy cuticle, and the waxy cuticle just acts as a barrier to stop any water from evaporating out. Then you've got a see-through upper epidermis, and then you've got your palisade layer, and these are the cells that carry out a majority of the photosynthesis. You've got air spaces in your spongy mesophyll, and this is there to help a diffusion of the gases to get them to the palisade cells as quickly as they can. And then you've got the stomata, which is the hole between the guard cells at the bottom. So if we looked at the equations then for photosynthesis, you can see there's some gaps there. Firstly, you have got to learn these equations. So if you are asked for the word equation, it's carbon dioxide plus water gives us glucose and oxygen. If you are asked to do the symbol equation, think about what you know. You know carbon dioxide is CO2. You know water is H2O. You know oxygen is O2. The one you might not know is glucose, and in past years they've let you have this in exam papers, but I'm not sure how nice they're going to be this year. So just as what you can either remember it as C6H12O6, or some people remember it as CHO, CHO6126. It depends, you may remember either. Now that is not a balanced symbol equation, but there is a really simple rule. Ignore glucose and just put a 6 in front of everything else, and trust me, it will balance. Okay, so factors that can affect photosynthesis, and these can be called limiting factors. These will actually, if one of these aren't there, then the process will slow down. First of all, your temperature. The best temperature is about 30 degrees. Anything above 40 degrees, and I'm sure you'll remember, if we go above 40 degrees, it means the enzymes responsible will start to denature, and this will slow photosynthesis right down. Carbon dioxide. If there's more carbon dioxide, photosynthesis will happen quicker. It's as simple as that. And then light. If there's more light, photosynthesis again happens faster. So these are factors you need to incorporate. These are some of the graphs you might see and you might be asked to interpret. So when we're talking about temperature, you can see the line goes up to show the rate of photosynthesis, and you'd be able to see that that line just drops straight off, and that must be because it's gone above 40 degrees. Okay, and like I said, this is because the enzymes have been denatured above 40 degrees, and so the process can't take place. Carbon dioxide, on the other hand, you'll see the rate of photosynthesis goes up until it actually levels out. And this is because there must be a limiting factor, by either a lack of increase in temperature or light. And exactly the same graph is for light, and again it's the other two that are the limiting factors. So what's glucose actually used for? Glucose can be used to make long chains of starch. This is how glucose is actually stored, joined together as long chains of starch. Okay, and that's why if you think about your carbohydrate groups are sugars and starches. Well, really it's all the same thing, it's just your sugars are joined together to make a molecule of starch. It can be used to make the cellulose for cell walls, okay, to make them tough. Okay, so you can see a little diagram there. And then glucose can be combined with nitrates to make proteins for growth. And obviously if you think glucoses, if they're combined with nitrates, nitrates make amino acids make proteins, and proteins are for growth. And lastly, glucose could be converted into lipids, fats or oils to store in seeds, and this is because when the seed first starts germinating it needs a lot of energy to get it going.